Hello, loves. It's your girl, Lisa Dannielle, and you're watching Zoom After Dark. This week, we talk with Pastor Cliff about sex. You heard me right. I was blown away by how many people feel like this is a taboo topic in the church, but I was so excited about this worthy conversation. Listen, no matter what your denomination or your faith, you need to hear what Pastor Cliff has to say. And of course, he sprinkled it with biblical foundation because that's what we're all about. Without further ado, Pastor Cliff. First of all, thank you everyone for coming to Zoom After Dark with Lisa Dannielle. I'm Lisa Dannielle, and I'm super excited about my guest tonight. Let me just tell you, it's one thing for you to be a man of God. It's another thing for you to be a marriage and family therapist. But if you're both, I don't even know if it's fair for you to be both. But Dr. Cliff Clark is with us tonight, and he's going to give us a whole bunch of doses of truth. I invited him. I was like, are you ready? He said, are you ready? So I'm super excited because I know he's got some good stuff for us tonight. A couple of house cleaning things before we get started. We do record this, and then we edit it, and then we post it. Any question that you ask me, it will be a confidential question. So even though I pose the questions to Dr. Clark, I won't say who asked the question. That way, you can hold on to your anonymity so none of the saints will know what you asked in the sex session with Dr. Cliff. Okay. However, I do edit it, and then I post it live on Facebook and then again on YouTube. Thank you guys all for coming tonight. I think that one of the hallmarks of my ministry is that we need to have worthy conversations. Worthy conversations get us to a place of freedom, and freedom is what God is all about. So I'm super excited about having my guest here. I was going to read your whole bio, but can I just say, it is extensive.
I told you to abbreviate that, Lisa, and you abbreviate that now.
He's got a whole lot of education, a whole lot of Jesus, and he is teaching pastor at the Conquerors Church. Please welcome with me, Dr. Cliff Clark.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thanks for having me on tonight. I'm honored for the invitation, and even more honored to be on, getting ready to engage. Whatever questions come, I'm excited. Let's flow.
Listen, so we're going to start with remembering, everyone, I want you, if you have questions, please place them in the chat box. I am more than happy to answer your questions or pose them to Dr. Cliff, but what I want so that we have a seamless recording is for you to keep the phone muted unless we ask you to unmute, okay? And then type in all your questions. Listen, we got questions around here, okay? We got things we need to know. So, Dr. Cliff, why don't you do me a favor and tell people what you specialize in?
Yeah, thank you. So I am a marriage, relationship, sexual addiction, and men's issues specialist. I do work with trauma, PTSD, mood disorders in general, personality disorders, even a little bit of neurological disorder work. I do some of that, but people by and large seek me out for marriage, premarital, that includes that. Relationship and sexual addiction, and finally men's issues, men's related issues. So that's the area of specialty.
Awesome. Well, okay, so you specialize in sexual addiction, you specialize in men's issues. I see a whole lot of women on here. I do see a couple of men. I see some married men. I see a few married men. Mm-hmm. Amen, man of God. We're glad that you're here. Okay, but there are some, I want to say, number one, in the community period, we don't necessarily always believe that we need to discuss everything, right? And so the first question I want to pose to you, and it's going to kind of parlay into some other questions, but the first thing I want to pose to you is sexual addiction a real thing?
The answer is a resounding absolutely yes.
Wow.
It is certainly a real thing. And what makes it a real thing is the principle of addiction. And that is to most commonly and recognizably related to something that we can identify with: alcohol, drug addiction, substance abuse. We understand people can be addicted from substance abuse. Mm-hmm. But the question becomes then, well, what makes them addicted? Well, there is a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Mm-hmm. Dopamine is not only present in, well, let me first explain what dopamine is. Dopamine is a reward hormone. It's a reward hormone that when you take a hit of something that makes you feel good, when you take a sip of something that alters the mind or alters the mood, then there is a reward that comes. It's very synonymous with, shopping, seeing something that you like. And
Yeah.
when you see something that you like, you get a sense of reward, of satisfaction, of a quench, of an itch being scratched.
Okay.
That the chemical that the brain expels at that time is called dopamine, which is a reward hormone. And again, that hormone helps us feel good. Well, here's what's true about dopamine, that the dopamine explosion can be very addictive. It can be because people like to feel good and people don't like to feel bad naturally. So what happens is, in addiction, that dopamine, that hormone, is ubiquitous. It's universal. It's transferable to any addiction. So the same thing is true for sex and porn addiction, where I can watch pornography, it makes me feel good. I can have sex rapidly, frequently, compulsively, and it makes me feel good. There's a reward that's expelled when we engage sexually. So that is the common denominator in all addictions, is dopamine. And that's for gambling, the rush that you feel with gambling, the satisfaction that you feel with shopping, and certainly the chemical addictions, alcohol, drugs, and not to mention also sex addiction.
Wow. So this reward hormone, you characterized it in a very interesting way for me. You said that dopamine explosion.
Mm-hmm.
And so is that literally what happens in your body? It's like every time you have a hit of that hormone, it explodes. And so it's like you know how sometimes it can be almost jarring, like you have something, it's like, you know what I mean? It doesn't kind of do that to you to where you're like then craving to feel that way again. So is it then independent of the act itself? Are you really craving the feeling and not so much the act, which is why the act can be so frequent and it doesn't really have to be consequential at all?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very good question. Very good question, Lisa. And I think I understand it clearly. The answer to that is the act and the feeling do not have to coexist.
Ooh, okay.
The act and the feeling don't have to coexist. And so research has shown that porn addicts, for instance, who are knee deep in their addiction, they, even when they begin to preoccupy about sitting down at the computer and
Right.
putting their fingers on the computer to get ready to type in their search, their desired search, so that they can experience and get to that place of escape, to access the dopamine, experience a measure of dopamine just even at the thought of putting their hands on the computer.
Wow. So there's elation. So basically, it mentally can bring forth a feeling of elation, just the thought of being able to partake of the experience itself, and it doesn't even have to the act doesn't even have to happen.
Exactly. It could be as simple as preoccupying about the act. Just as you don't have to sit down on the computer and type in red bottom shoes on Amazon. You can start thinking about,
Yes.
I want those red bottom shoes. And then what happens, Lisa, when you think about
Exactly.
those red bottoms?
All
What
right.
happens? Okay. You feel that excitement. You feel that reward.
Right.
Well, that reward does not necessitate that you sit in front of a computer to access it, or even to a greater extent of separation, putting on the shoes and owning them. We're not even talking about owning the shoes. We're talking about thinking about owning the shoes. So that's what makes sexual addiction an addiction, is that dopamine does not, you don't need to experience a thing to access dopamine. It's this, and this is why sex addiction, just like drug addiction, alcohol addiction, gambling, you name it, is a brain disease. It's a brain disease. It's
Wow.
neuropathic and secondarily behavioral.
That is blowing me away. Let me tell you why. Because, I understood you before, but when you brought it back around to shoes, I had a whole new appreciation for the conversation. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't mean to come down your alley there, Lisa. I didn't mean to come down and read your mail on Lisa After Dark.
What I can say to you, though, without any question whatsoever, is that it is that is so true. It's, I'm going to Neiman Marcus. It's, I'm going to get a pair of shoes today.
Sure.
And it's, then you get the shoe, you wear the shoe one good time. And even though you love the shoe the same, you may hug the shoes a time. You can't wait to get to Neiman for another pair. You can't wait. It's a draw.
And what you're describing now, Lisa, is what we call novelty. Novelty. So novelty is another component in addiction as well, with drugs, with alcohol, with sex addiction as well. Let's draw the parallels. What is novelty? Novelty is the new. It's the premier. It's the unprecedented. So when it comes to alcohol, once you continue to utilize it for a consistent period of time, whereas when you first started, one shot of tequila was enough to knock you off your rocker. Well, what happens if you continue in that? Well, we called it building tolerance. So now one shot is not enough, because the neural pathways in your brain that lead to dopamine, they become used to that. It's no longer exciting. It's no longer interesting. I've had that. What do you need now to experience the same high? Well, you need a stronger shot. You need more. You need something. You need tequila mixed with Coke. I don't even know if those mix. I don't drink, but you need Coke and rum. You need, you need to conjure something novel so that you can have a new experience to get the same high. Same thing is for the red bottoms. Now you need the Manolo Blancs. Now you need the Chanels. Now you need the Ferragamo, Salvatore Ferragamos, because I've gotten used to the ones that I've loved. I've gotten used to them. I've already satisfied. I scratched that itch. Now I need something novel, hence the addiction. So same thing in pornography. I used to watch, not me personally, but in theory, let's say a person used to watch heterosexual porn, male on woman, and now that becomes boring. So now I need threesomes, and now I need orgies. Now I need gangbangs. Now I need, it gets more and more extreme, because the novelty becomes the next pursuit. It becomes the most interesting. It becomes the Manolo Blanc when I've already had the Ferragamos.
Right. Okay. So listen, you because you deviated me from my notes a little bit, but
sorry.
No. We need to go here.
Okay.
Because I think in you discussing that, and you describing the difference between that dopamine explosion and novelty, how dangerous is novelty in a monogamous relationship? Someone who needs novelty with someone who doesn't. How dangerous is that? Is it dangerous? And if so, tell us why.
Absolutely. Profound question. And it is absolutely dangerous. And here's why. Number one, ideally, novelty is not a bad thing. In general. Novelty in at least God's design for sex and what should be experienced in the confines of marriage, that novelty should be shared among two people. So when you both make a new discovery sexually in the bedroom, in the marital bedroom, then it's surprising. It's something that's shared. Okay. It's something that's shared. And we all understand that sex is better experienced. Life is better experienced when you share it with someone. Right. All right. So what happens is when it's experienced mutually, when novelty is experienced mutually in a marital confine sexually, then that detonates what we call another hormone called oxytocin. Okay. Oxytocin is the bonding hormone. It is the same hormone that is emitted from a mother who is breastfeeding her child, or I should say experienced between a mother and a child breastfeeding. They're experiencing something new together. The child is receiving the milk from the nipple. The mother is receiving affection from the child as she is able to nurture. That's a bonding and novel experience. So when that happens, then they experience that mutually. All right. So that's healthy. That's good. That's the way God designed novelty to be experienced, because now every round goes higher and higher within the confines of a marital context. Got you. Now let's look at the other side of that. when
Okay.
it's experienced independently. All right, Lisa, have you seen any of the Harry Potter movies?
Yes.
Okay, there is one Harry Potter movie. I believe it's the first one or the second one. I believe it's the Chamber of Secrets or the Sorcerer's Stone.
Yes.
Um, in that story, in that movie, Harry Potter he discovers in the school, he discovers a mirror,
Yes.
and you remember that?
Yes.
Okay, he discovers a mirror, and what do you remember about the mirror?
The mirror shows him what he really wants.
Mm-hmm.
He can't figure out how to get it, but
Mm-hmm.
he constantly sees it. He can see himself with the stone, but he can't figure out how to get the stone from the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
So he's
Mm-hmm.
staring at his reflection constantly, almost like what is it, Dorian Gray kind of thing, just
Sure.
staring at it constantly trying to get the
Mm-hmm.
reward.
Yep. If you'll remember, here's what Harry sees. So what Harry sees is when he looks into the mirror, and the mirror is called the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
The Mirror of Erised is what Professor Dumbledore comes in
Mm-hmm.
and tells Harry what it is. Oh, you found the Mirror of Erised.
Yeah.
That word Erised, there's a message encrypted in that. That word Erised is the word desire spelled backwards. It's the mirror of desire.
Yes.
If you remember, here's what Harry does. He looks into the mirror, and what does he see? He doesn't see the stone, Lisa. He sees his parents and him.
And him.
He sees the family.
Right. That's right.
Dumbledore tells him, now why is Harry seeing his parents and his family? Well, because those of you who haven't seen the series, Harry's parents are killed tragically
Right.
by a villain early when Harry was a baby.
Right.
Okay? But so Harry is an orphan
Yep.
longing for his parents. As he looks into the mirror, Dumbledore interrupts his gaze,
Mm-hmm.
and as he's seeing his parents, and he says, "You found the mirror of Erised." He says,
Mm-hmm.
"Why am I seeing my parents?" Well, you're seeing your parents because this mirror reveals
Mm-hmm.
the deepest desires of a person's heart.
Mm-hmm.
It
That's
says,
right.
and men and women have died looking into this
Yes.
mirror because they finally see themselves, they perceive, they experience the very thing that they desire the deepest. It is a novel experience.
Okay.
And when you see that, so Harry has experienced something novel. Why? Because he's never seen his mom and dad and his
Right.
family. He sees
Right.
it. So what happens is you experience that, and he says men waste away trapped in this trance of fixating on what they desire deeply and the most. And that
Okay.
is what happens, Lisa, with sexual addiction or unhealthy behaviors or the pursuit of the novelty, is that you can, when you're independently pursuing novelty,
Yeah.
you are wasting away. I have sex addicts that I counsel that have wasted away in front of the computer screen, just watching hours, endless hours of pornography, chasing the deepest fantasies that
Right.
they've always had, looking at that mirror of Erised, that mirror of desire,
That always
and
evolves.
that always, it's never satisfied.
Right.
It's never satisfied.
Okay.
It's a hamster wheel. You're chasing ghosts. So
Yeah.
with that, Lisa, in closing, there is a such thing as experiencing something that's too good. There's a
Okay.
such thing as experiencing too much euphoria. Like for instance, the drug meth. The
Yes.
drug meth is it's such an extreme experience to the brain that
Mm-hmm.
people get addicted on meth very, very quickly,
Okay.
because it expels so much dopamine, copious amounts of dopamine, to the point where the person they can't believe how high they are. It's so good. Well, your
Mm.
brain should not experience that type of extreme exposure to dopamine, because when you go there, it can become addictive and you pursue that. And this is what happens in independent pursuits of novelty. You can experience something that's too good. Threesomes, orgies, gangbangs, that's a lot of stimulus. That's
Right.
a whole lot. So if you experience that, then you've experienced something that really is too good. When you
Mm.
get into a monogamous, healthy relationship, and that's not enough for you, well, why is that not enough? Because you've had so much exposure to the mirror of Erised that normal
Mm.
and healthy life is unfulfilling.
That's good. No, that is very, very good. And that kind of leads me into the next section of that. So knowing that we're constantly in front of this mirror, this desire mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then that gives us an understanding where you can have one person that is completely on a healthy side of the spectrum. They're completely satisfied with their partner. They're satisfied with having that novelty within the confines of their relationship. And then they've married a partner who is not used to that, who needs to have that every round goes higher and higher. And you said something earlier that I want to talk about, which is the feeling and the act are not correlated together all the time for those people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, do you think that infidelity is more prevalent? And if infidelity is more prevalent because of this, would this be, we've heard it said, right, especially those who have been in relationships with someone who has not been faithful to them,
Mm-hmm.
that when I have sex with another person, it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with how I felt about you. I was just having sex with another person. Is that imbalance of one person's novelty versus where they are expressing novelty? Let me say that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Loaded and sophisticated question. I may ask for clarity, so help me out if I need it.
Yeah.
But what I believe the answer to that is, number one, infidelity happens for a few reasons.
Okay. Give them to me.
Yeah. Number one, exposure.
Okay.
Exposure. And this is not in ranking order. These are just the ingredients that almost always are present in infidelity. Exposure, a person being exposed to something or hyperexposed, hypersexualized, hyper emotionally stimulated outside of the marriage. And that could even be before they get married. It could even be before they get married. Sometimes, many cases, in fact, I'd even venture to say most cases, people grandfather in nutrients from prior relationships that they appreciated, that scratched a particular itch for them. Now, maybe that relationship didn't work out for whatever reason, it obviously didn't work out for whatever reason, but it doesn't mean that they throw the entire baby out with the bathwater. There were some things that they liked that they hung on to. And so that exposure, once you have your partner, then now if that partner doesn't fulfill and scratch the itches of what you've experienced, then there can be a void left if you haven't put that to rest and put it in its proper place.
That's good. So it's entirely possible for some of your sexual experiences prior to your marriage to still be attached to you, so that when you get inside that environment, right, it's still not satisfying.
Absolutely.
To experience what you've had before.
Yep. And it is both psychological and spiritual. It is both neurological and spiritual. And I'll deal with that in a moment. Let me answer the rest of your question.
Yeah.
So you've got that component of exposure.
Yeah.
Then you have the component of integrity.
Okay.
I don't care how much of a terrible wife you are to me, Lisa, you cannot make me cheat.
That's right.
I decide to cheat. It is a matter of my own decision making and my own integrity. At some point, I have to compromise my integrity if I'm going to be an infidel, independent.
Right.
Okay. So you got exposure, you've got integrity, and then you have vulnerability.
Okay.
Which can be it can look a few different ways. It can be let's say the wife is cheating and the husband and wife have not been communicating. They haven't been communicating. Well, if they haven't been communicating, one or both of the parties are derelict in their duty to be aware, to be attached, to be connected to their spouse. So to the degree that you are connected or not connected to your spouse is the degree that they become vulnerable to connecting with somebody else.
Okay.
You may not be talking to your spouse.
Yeah.
But don't think that just because you're not talking to them, they're not talking to somebody.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's vulnerability.
Right.
So that could be the husband or the wife's fault. It doesn't matter. All right. So now, So those are some of the core reasons why infidelity occur. Now, when you factor in the exposure, let's say, now, because there's multiple types of affairs.
Right.
There's emotional affairs and
Right.
there's sexual affairs.
Right.
Okay, you got emotional affairs. Maybe you're not having sex with the man or the woman, but you are texting all day. You're sharing pertinent and intimate information and details with them. They're scratching an itch that your spouse should be scratching. That's an emotional affair. You're connecting. I haven't slept with him. I haven't slept with her. It hasn't happened, but we're talking all day. But I am when I
You're
have
still bonded, right? It's
you're
just
bonding. You're bonding. Now that oxytocin is being experienced with another person. That's an emotional affair. And you also have, of course, the sexual affair. The
right.
sexual affair is obviously when you have a sexual transaction of any variety. So now you asked a question briefly about the novelty in that context. What was that question, Lisa?
For me, I think let me redirect. So if you have a person that has had a boatload of sexual experience outside of the marriage, and they have said, right, let's talk from a Christian context, I am saving myself from marriage, so I'm not going to have sex anymore. It does not mean that they've dealt with the stuff they've experienced before. So now they've waited, right? They've married some person. This one person is perfectly fine to experience novelty with them. Is it possible for their experiences, even before they put themselves on starvation, to come back or remanifest within the marriage and them have an appetite that their current mate cannot fill?
Thank you. That's what I needed from you. So
Yeah.
the answer is yes. And I mentioned earlier that phenomenon is both spiritual and psychological.
Right.
And here's how let's deal with the psychological first.
Okay. I'm taking notes.
Please do. Please do. Okay. So you have in the brain, when we have experiences, no matter what your experience is,
right,
your brain creates what we call a neural pathway.
Okay.
Neural, neural pathway.
Okay.
It's a pathway, it's a neurological pathway that goes from the experience to the dopamine or the lack thereof. So for instance, you go to a steakhouse, you immediately create a neural pathway.
Okay.
You go to that steakhouse, you have a bad experience. The neural pathway is not going to reward you because you didn't like the experience.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you lose the neural pathway. You've had the experience, so your brain remembers it.
Right.
But it wasn't pleasurable. So it's going to be more likely to forget. Because that neural pathway becomes overgrown.
Yeah.
Because it's not somewhere you frequent. And think of a plot of grass, Lisa. And growing up in Detroit in the hood, we used to cross the grass to go to the store. We would cross this big field of grass to go to the store. And we did that so much that there became a pathway, an entrenchment that led from our house to the store because we frequented that pathway so often. So if that pathway, if the store wasn't rewarding, we wouldn't go there often.
Right.
But the store has what we need. So we keep going and thereby trenching the pathway.
Right.
The same thing happens at the steakhouse, where if you go to a good steakhouse, you're going to continue to go, and that neural pathway tells you this is a rewarding place. It's a surefire way to feel good. I can get a great meal here. And so that becomes the habitual experience for you because you go there, right? So now let's transpose that to the context of sexual experiences.
Okay.
When a person has a memorable sexual experience, when they have a memorable sexual experience, then what they're more prone to continue to go back and draw water from that well. Very seldom do people have phenomenal sexual experiences and then I'm going to block him, girl. I'm done with him.
Okay.
that Lisa, you and I both know that never happens.
Never.
Okay. It never
Right.
happens. It's,
Right.
oh my God, girl, he rocked my world. I know
Right.
I may not even need to do this, but I got to have at least another hit.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. You go back there because you had a reward, you had an experience. Well, if that happens outside of marriage where a person has saved themselves,
Mm.
then what the person who has saved themselves, what the pure person is battling is the extramarital historical experiences.
Right. How do I compete?
How do I compete with the frequency of this that the
Yeah.
person has? How do I compete? How do I grow the grass back in this field that has been so deeply entrenched because I've gone there so much? Well, what has to happen? You have to stop walking across the field. If you're going to if you're going to regrow that grass, if you're
Yeah.
going to be able to experience the purity and the fidelity of an intimate relationship with the person that you are with and be satisfied by that,
Yeah.
you have to stop going back to that store. You have to let that grass grow out and stop
Mm-hmm.
trampling it. All right. That's the neural pathway. The
Mm-hmm.
spiritual side of that, the question becomes, why do I keep going back to the store? Why do I keep crossing the field? Well,
Right.
because the store always rewards. It never disappoints.
Right.
This is why the brother can't stop, can't leave that girl alone,
Right.
because the experience
Right.
doesn't disappoint.
Absolutely.
So now, what does that look like spiritually? Well, science, in my opinion, science and psychology does not compete with Christianity or spirituality. It helps us to understand and better study Christianity and spirituality.
Mm.
What happens is we call this what we call soul ties.
Yep.
Soul ties.
Yep.
Psychology has just studied the neurology of it.
Mm-hmm.
The research simply informs what is happening in the spirit realm.
Right. Right.
So all we know is, girl, I can't leave her alone. I can't leave him alone. That's all we know.
Right.
But what's happening spiritually is there's a soul tie. And
Right.
what's happening psychologically is that soul tie has manifested itself neurologically into what we call a deeply entrenched neural pathway. Because I've
Wow.
continued to go to that store so many times. It's been so rewarding. Why would I ever stop? Who's going to stop putting money in a slot machine that continues to kick out cash?
To pay out. Right.
All right. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. So
I got a couple of questions.
shoot.
I got questions in the
Hit me
box.
with 'em.
So let's go back. I'm gonna ask you to go back to one question. How do you break the chase / cycle of going after the high?
Mm-hmm. How do you break the chain? How do you break the chase of going after the high? Good question. There's a couple of dynamics to doing so.
Okay.
Number one, it starts with the person's awareness that they need to come out of the high.
Okay.
One of the toughest things with working with addicts is them battling their what we call their motivation to change, or their, I can't think of the stages of change, and that is, excuse me, that is, I can't help you unless you feel like you need help.
Right.
I can't treat you unless you are at least convinced that you need treatment.
Right. Right.
Jesus said it best this way: they that be whole need not a physician.
Right.
If you're convinced that you are whole,
Just fine. Right.
you're all set. What are you coming to the doctor for?
Right.
Now, of course, Jesus was talking to sinners who he knew were sick and they needed him.
Right.
But he was saying, you can't receive me unless you first come out of denial of the fact that you actually do need me.
Right. Okay.
So when you're dealing with someone who is, coming down from the high, how do you get them to come down from the high? It first starts with them coming out of denial.
Right.
Being what we call pre-contemplative in the stages of change.
Okay.
If a person is pre-contemplative, they are not thinking about changing.
Okay.
You see I have a problem. I don't see I have a problem. I'm all set. I'm pre-contemplative. I'm not ruminating. I'm not perseverating on this.
Right.
I'm good.
As far as
So
I'm concerned, I'm fine.
I'm all set.
No problem
Yeah, you have the problem, not me.
with me, but you have a problem.
Let's be clear about that. Exactly.
Right.
Okay. So that's what they're saying.
Right.
But when a person graduates from pre-contemplative to what we call contemplative,
Okay.
then they realize they have an issue. Now they're a step closer to getting help.
Wow.
I now need to come from the high. And now that I realize I need to come from the high, then what do I need to do now? Well, I need to put together healthy boundaries. I need to put together, number one, an abstinence plan. I need to decide what I'm going to stop doing. And that comes from being familiar with the consequences of what this has caused me. What happens when you continue to get high? What happens if you continue to have this phenomenal sex? What happens if that is illicit, of course?
Right.
What happens if you continue to do these things and you get high? It feels good, but what are the consequences?
Yeah.
So to help a person to stop getting the high, they first need to be reminded of consequences. They probably need to experience consequences first before they can take it seriously.
Right.
The consequences, Lisa, will then help inform at least what they need to abstain from.
Okay.
I need to abstain from this. Why? Because this causes me consequences. I got to stop sleeping with this girl. Why? Because every time I sleep with her, even though the sex is phenomenal, she stalks me.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly. I don't want all that. I don't want that smoke. Okay.
I don't want questions. Okay.
I don't want that smoke. So now I need to stop getting high because even though it's good, the consequences are too heavy. So now you remind a person of what they need to abstain from based on the consequences. All right. Then the second tier is what we call healthy boundaries.
Right.
You need, because you have a proclivity to do it.
Yeah.
We've all been there where we've experienced something that we love. We come to a place where we say, you know what, I can't do this anymore. And we decide not to do it anymore. But what happens over time, Lisa? Give it a week or two. What happens?
Start to miss it.
You start to miss it, of course, because your brain is reminding you of the value of that reward.
Right.
That dopamine starts activating. You're like, don't you miss that? Ooh, you used to know how that feels, and you just know.
Right.
So you remind yourself. So now, what do you need in those times? Well, you need healthy boundaries. You need healthy boundaries to help protect you from yourself.
Right.
Okay.
Wow.
And we all need protection from ourselves, and we'll be honest about it. We all do.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you need another line of defense, and that is what we call accountability.
Right.
You need somebody to slap you across the face when you don't want to, when you have decided that you're going to wild out anyway.
Right.
Okay. With that, over time, research tells us, Lisa, that
a big rubber band.
Exactly. Yep. You need a rubber band. You need somebody to put you on a leash while
Right.
you are until you can develop the strength to be an adult in that area.
Absolutely.
So now what happens, Lisa, is research tells us that any person who is addicted to something, or if you don't want to call it an addiction, maybe a dependency or a habit, 40 days of abstinence, if you can establish 40 days of abstinence in that area, that is enough to give your brain the chance to begin to grow over shrubs and potholes in that neural pathway to discourage the traveling, the journey back to that road, back to that destination that used to get that reward from. So 40 days gives your brain time to heal. What I love about the brain and God's invention of it and its ingenuity is that the brain, because it's a muscle, it has the ability to recover and heal. We call it neural, N-E-U-R-A-L, plasticity. Neuroplasticity. It is the brain's pliable nature. The brain is pliable. It is impressionable. It can be conditioned to do other things, just like you can, it's what we call acquired taste. You can hate sushi at first, but if you continue to introduce yourself to sushi, you acquire the taste for it. All right. The brain, that's your brain immediately rejecting it, but then saying, okay, I'm going to start finding the good in this.
Yeah.
Now your brain is being rewarded in a different way. Now you're developing new neural pathways, alternative neural pathways that are healthy
Yep.
so that you don't have to go back down the old road. So now this looks like in the context of your relationship that you were hypothetically proposing.
Yeah.
Now, if I abstain enough, 40 days at least and beyond, if I have my healthy boundaries, and if I have accountability with going back down that road, now I can give my brain a chance to heal. And
Yeah.
I can now develop new rewarding neural pathways, new sources of dopamine in the confines of a relationship that is both appropriate and godly endorsed and ordained. My marriage. That makes sense.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So we have another question. It says, why do you think people cheat? Is it because they can't be honest about their fantasies?
Loaded question. It can be that. That's a possibility. But people cheat for many, many different reasons. We talked about a few of the reasons earlier.
Yeah.
We talked about exposure.
Mm-hmm.
It could be something that I have not put to death in my past. And when you
Mm-hmm.
talk about the neural pathways there and frequenting that ends up leading to infidelity or the novelty that we spoke of earlier,
Mm-hmm.
that comes from a person's inability to put to death and grieve the loss of what they used to love.
Mm.
Many people cheat because they're not able to, they have trouble grieving.
Mm.
They don't know how to grieve the loss of something.
Okay.
They're in a different season of their life, but they're hanging onto a former glory.
Heyday.
Yeah, I'm still in my
I used to
heyday.
be the man.
I used to be the
the
man.
woman.
Exactly. So they're
Right.
unable
Mm-hmm.
to decease or accept the fact that it is deceased.
Mm.
They haven't buried it. And so what it is, it's alive still, at least in their own imagination. And so this is why a lot of men and women cheat, is because, and I'll speak to the men specifically, a lot of men cheat because men don't like to lose.
Mm.
Men don't like to experience loss.
Okay.
So what that, and I'll put more meat on that bone if you'll let me.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
is, men, I can move on and go to another relationship, but I don't like the idea always of not feeling like that I can't go back here if I wanted to.
Mm.
Even if I don't want to, I
Or
like
you actually do it. You want to know that you can if you want.
I want to know that I can if I want to, which is of course prideful and conquest. It's all about pride and conquest at that
Mm-hmm.
moment, because men have this conquesting nature to us, where we like to, we have to conquer something, we have to dominate, we have to, that's germane to
Mm-hmm.
our anatomy, our mental state.
Yeah.
So what that is though is it's a refusal to, when something is over, to accept the fact that it is over.
Wow.
And so I have trouble accepting the fact that I can't have that anymore.
Oh, I gotta ask a question. I'm sorry.
Shoot, take it away.
But when you said that, so I can't handle that it's over, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to accept that it's over. And it may not even be about the person they cheated with. It may just be like, I can't accept that I'm not that person anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the ladies' man anymore, right? So it's your inability to disconnect with certain parts of your personality that, though may have been unhealthy,
Mm-hmm.
it may have still been a part of you that you loved.
Exactly. Absolutely. And therein lies, in this example with men, where it's hard to let go of something that was so good. It's hard to let go of something that you had such success with, because to lose that is, in many cases, a shot to the ego and pride. And so we as men have a hard time with grief and loss.
Wow, that's good.
Tough.
That's good.
Whereas women will try to resuscitate, try to work on it, try to bring it back to life, resurrect it if they can, as long as they believe in it.
Right.
They'll try to keep it on life support. They'll pray. And I shouldn't have said resurrect. I should have said just maintain it.
Right.
But a lot of women, once it dies for a woman,
it's dead.
It's dead.
Don't come back for
Don't
it.
come back. The door's closed. It's gone. It's gone.
No defibrillator.
Exactly.
Right.
No defibrillator. Right. Exactly.
There's nothing you can do.
Nothing you can do.
Right.
Because women don't have that same trouble that we have. They don't have that same gear of pride. They have a version of pride. They have a variety, but it looks different. Yes. Because we need that conquest. We don't, if something dies, we want it to die on our terms. We do not want it to be taken away from us.
Yeah.
And so that's so people will cheat, men will cheat in a lot of ways because it's I miss it and I want to be able to go back there just so that my ego and my pride, I can still feel like the man that I was. And the problem with that, Lisa, write them questions down, girl. Write them down.
I'm writing it because you just
write them down.
Okay.
I need every one of them. So here we go. What happens is it's likened unto an old vegetable. Broccoli has you got about 2 weeks out of broccoli for it to sit on the shelf.
Right.
If you don't use broccoli in its season, and this is the case for anything, if you don't lose broccoli in its season, then it begins to do what, Lisa?
Wilt.
It begins to wilt. It begins to decay. It begins to rot.
Yeah.
It begins to smell.
Yeah.
Now, any person who has any sense will do what with broccoli once it gets to that stage?
Throw it away.
You got to throw it away. Why?
Yes.
Because it's no longer alive.
No longer good.
The problem with men is we'll smell the broccoli rotten and we'll leave it in the refrigerator.
That was my broccoli.
That was my broccoli.
That was my broccoli. So I'm not throwing my broccoli out.
I'm not going to throw the broccoli away. Or are we too lazy to throw it away? We don't feel like
ruining my other food. But
I can still use that broccoli. You sure that broccoli bad? We could probably get another day or two out of it.
Right.
And that ain't it. You got to let that thing go. It's over.
It's over. Wow.
Okay. And so now let's flip it to women because I've been rough on the brothers.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm coming down women's alley.
Yeah.
Women, what they will cheat for are different reasons.
Mm.
Many times women will cheat because of that security that is absent. When the security is threatened, here's what a woman does. And this is reflected in statistics, in divorce statistics. The divorce rate in America is 52%, trending toward 53%. So almost 53% of marriages end in divorce in America.
Right.
Of that 53%, Lisa, 88% of those divorces are filed by women.
Mm-hmm.
88% of the divorces are filed by women.
Mm-hmm.
Why are women filing? Why are they leaving? Because of the security breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Where a woman feels secure, she will be loyal to. When she does not feel secure or taken care of, then she will begin to desperately search out that security elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
This looks like an emotional affair first.
Mm-hmm.
Women almost never jump in the bed with a man immediately just because she finds him sexy or attractive.
Right.
And if she does, then there's a broken function in her somewhere. There's a deeper root issue there.
Right.
Okay. Chances are it's what we call an eroticized rage, which is an anger or a disturbance that is motivating the eroticism and the acting out behavior.
Right.
But women typically, a healthy woman will cheat, if I could use those two in the same context.
A healthy woman will cheat.
Yeah, a healthy woman will cheat when her emotional needs are not met and that security is compromised. So now then, the infidelity at first becomes psychological and emotional.
Mm.
When she's talking to somebody that makes her feel better than the situation she's in.
Okay.
She's talking to somebody who makes her cope, who helps her to feel comfortable. She copes with the situation that she's in.
Okay.
Through this alternative support system, this man. If that continues and that grass continues to be watered. And if she is getting the rewards that she's been deprived of here, then it most certainly, for all intents and purposes, Lisa, will continue.
Right.
Then the sexual infidelity becomes inevitable.
Right.
The fruit just falls off the tree. It's like pot roast. You know, you leave that thing you can't cook pot roast fast.
No.
You got to leave that thing on slow simmer, put it in the crock pot overnight, go to church,
right.
You come back, you know, that thing to simmer with the onions. By the time you get back, it's just falling off the bone. It's peeling apart. By the time the woman sexually deviates from her post, her commitment, man, that pot roast has been baking. That thing has been, it's been on a slow simmer.
Right.
What?
There's flowers in the grass.
Man, there's flowers in the grass.
The grass is flowery.
Man,
okay, so let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
She says, what if you have indulged in all of those novelties, we're going back to novelty, and haven't gotten addicted? Is it just as bad to watch? Also, what if you are married and you and your spouse watch porn together?
Okay, she's got a loaded question. So give me the first part of that question.
So let's take the first part. Let's break it up. What if you have indulged in all of those novelties, you know, going outside, looking at porn, whatever, and you have not gotten addicted? Is it just as bad to watch?
Is it just as bad to watch? Just as bad. Bad becomes relative. I think the better term that I would use would be healthy.
Okay, so let's use healthy.
Yeah, is it healthy?
Pornography.
Pornography, in my opinion, is not healthy. And here's why. Because when you begin to watch other people's experiences and you study their experiences, naturally what ends up happening is we begin to compare ourselves to what we're seeing.
See that on social media, right?
Naturally,
right?
Very naturally, you get perspective. It's kind of like a clock. Lisa, if 12 o'clock was the only number on the clock, then you don't have time.
Right.
You just have 12 o'clock. What does 12 even mean?
Right.
12 o'clock gets its value and its distinction when we do what? When we put other numbers on the clock.
Yeah.
So now 12 o'clock noon gets its value because it's compared to 3 o'clock.
Right.
So now I'll meet you at 12 and I won't meet you at 3. Okay. Because 12 is compared to 3.
Right.
All right. If there is nothing else to compare, then you have bliss. You just have 12 o'clock, or you have what we call eternity.
Okay. So that's good because we're venturing into the bounds of marriage, right? We are faith leaders, right? So we believe that sex belongs within the confines of marriage. We believe that is what God has ordained it for, right? We're not just out here, you know, spreading seed on the ground and hoping that it, you know, something spring up. We believe in the Lord for covenant.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I want to redirect because I want to be clear with this. So the question was, what if you're married and you and your spouse watched porn together? What I am gathering, and I want you to let me know if I'm on target, is that because you are considering porn not necessarily a healthy act itself, because you naturally are comparing someone else's experience, it is better for your marriage and you're probably for your sexual health within that marriage if there is no one to compare it to. So porn gives you an unrealistic comparison model, right? You're running hard after something that probably may have been staged or not, is not even real.
That's exactly right. And you're what you're saying is loaded, and you're headed right down the trail that I was headed down.
Okay.
Let's first deal with independently watching porn.
Right.
When you independently watch porn, not only is what you're seeing informing not only is it informing comparison.
Yes.
Because comparison kills, as Jonathan McReynolds, he wrote a wonderful song called Comparison Kills, and it is profound, and truer words haven't been spoken.
Right.
Not only is that the case, with the comparison component, but
Right.
you begin to pervert the
Mm.
intention of what sexual intimacy is for by God. We talk about God's intention.
Mm-hmm.
God's intention for sexual intimacy was in the confines of a marriage. What comes up immediately, you'll recall the Genesis 2 account,
Mm-hmm.
where the Bible says the man and the woman, after God created Eve for Adam, the man and the woman were both in the garden, and they were two things, Lisa. They were naked
Mm-hmm.
and unashamed.
Mm-hmm.
Naked, here I am, warts, wrinkles, scars, stretch marks, and all. Cellulite is all here. I'm naked,
Oh, right.
okay?
Right.
And I'm not ashamed about what you see.
Right.
I'm not ashamed about these stretch marks. I'm not ashamed about my scars. I'm not ashamed. Here I am, naked and unashamed. That's the ideal picture and the manufactured creation, God's manufactureship over a relationship, sexually and emotionally and intimately in every way.
Right.
When you're watching pornography, you immediately deviate from that because that intimacy was shared. In pornography, independently as you're watching it, you're not sharing intimacy. You are voyeuring intimacy. You are making withdrawals, but you are making no deposits.
Mm-hmm.
I
Okay.
watch your intimacy, man or woman, on the screen, couple, orgy, threesome, whatever. I watch yours. I make withdrawals from you, but I do not give you any of my vulnerability. You don't see anything of me.
Right.
So now that transaction is lopsided, and therefore it can't be healthy, because anything that is healthy has to have movement. Blood
Mm.
has to flow through the body. What makes my hand function is the give and take of my arteries and veins, that
Mhm.
it's sending blood here, but then that blood is coming back.
Right.
It's circulating, and now every joint supply it. So
Right.
now my body has functionality and vitality because it's reciprocal.
Right.
Same
Yes.
thing is the case for watching pornography or in a marriage, where when intimacy is shared and reciprocated, you thrive because we are created to give of ourselves. We're not created to withdraw and not give. So you
Yeah.
begin to self-implode. That's number one. Number two, it's warping your expectations,
Mm.
because there are no two people alike in this world.
Right.
So when you're watching somebody else have sex, you begin to, what we naturally do, we cherry pick, we draw. Oh, I want to do that. Oh, I like that. Oh, I this. Oh, I that. You cherry pick from those experiences,
Right.
and the problem is those things that you cherry pick may not be transferable to
Mm.
the sexual dynamics with somebody else.
Right.
In other words, there's some positions that you see on TV that you ain't gonna be able to do with your partner.
With Boudreaux. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
This sister, she might not be that flexible.
Right.
Your wife might not be able to do that.
Right.
Okay. Your husband might not have that kind of dexterity.
Right. Right.
Okay. It's the
So it's
dynamics are.
unfair. It's essentially unfair. You walk in with deficiencies.
You walk in with a warped deficiency, a warped sense of what it should be, versus having only 12 o'clock on the clock.
Yeah.
If you only
Okay.
have 12 o'clock, you don't have, so you have eternal bliss when you don't
Yeah.
have comparison.
Yeah.
Now, let's go to the other part of it, her question is watching it in marriage, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, here's what happens. The same thing is happening in marriage, whereas you two are now comparing yourselves naturally to what
Mm-hmm.
you're seeing.
Mm.
Some person may say, well, we don't watch it for that reason. We watch it because we want to learn new stuff. We want to try new stuff. But remember, everything that you see on TV is not transferable. And most importantly, it's Hollywood. Most of it is smoke and mirrors.
Right.
So what you don't know is that you're very likely chasing a ghost.
Hmm.
And it's fool's gold.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate to a real relationship context. Not only
Yeah.
that, but the dynamic that they're experiencing, these people are business people. They're
Right.
contracted for a scene.
Right.
They don't have romance, fidelity, loyalty. They don't have children together. They don't have business and assets together. They've not shared their deepest, darkest secrets. They're simply transacting business.
Right.
So all of the elements and the ingredients that inform the sexual experience within a marriage that are bonding and healthy, that make it healthy, none of those nutrients are present in the pornography platform.
Right.
So it's just not an apples to apples comparison.
Yeah.
And therefore it's not healthy, not to mention the damage that it does to the brain. Because it is very likely then that when you are not getting what you see in the movies with your partner, you may be, if you're the woman, thinking about being stroked like that. While you're with your partner, you're thinking about the other man in the scene, fantasizing now. Or now you're the man thinking about, your wife, accommodating you in a certain way.
Right. Right.
Where she doesn't have that capacity. So now you are borrowing from the fantasy of something that you do not have. It's going right back, Lisa, to that mirror of Erised, that mirror of desire. And you're bringing it, you're dragging it, you're incorporating it and weaving it into the bedroom of the marital bed. And of course, it's only a matter of time before that decomposes your intimacy. Wow.
Well, listen, I want to be respectful of your time. And so I got a couple more questions to you. Are you good?
I'm good on time. I'm ready for this.
Y'all good on time? Type in the chat box. Let me know if y'all are good on time.
Yeah, you'll quit before me, Lisa. I'm good.
There's so much to unpack here, and so I want to shift tide a little bit. I want to talk about the relationship a little bit. Some of the things I hear a lot, especially in the single women's movement, there are a lot of things I want to kind of pose to you. And one of the things that I deal with a lot in my book, I've written a book, and in my book, I talk about how important purity is prior to marriage, how important saving yourself from marriage is. Unequivocally, without question, I'm always asked two questions. One, what if I save myself from marriage and the sex is horrible? And two, I know that I'm supposed to save myself from marriage and I want a man to respect me. But how do I know that in our waiting, I'm not marrying a man who ends up being down low or gay? Because that is a fear. And it's not a fear because it's never happened to women before. I thought that while we were dating, he was just being respectful of me. And now it's our wedding night. And then it's our wedding month. Now it's been our first year of marriage. And, we have not touched and agreed. So, so my question is, how do we, let's talk about it. How do we address that? Because I personally, this is me personally, I do not personally believe that, let's just be clear, I've tried it both ways. I've saved myself for marriage and I've had sex outside of marriage, right? And I don't believe that it works either way sometimes, because your picker is not correct, right? If your picker is right, then you're gonna be fine. You can pick the right person and that saving is rewarding, right? So you don't have to worry about that. But when it comes to being in a relationship with someone that is not within the confines of marriage and sexually giving yourself to someone, obviously, that you've given all that you have, right? To some random person that you hope will be around, but they're not going to be around. How do we get some security in knowing God's way is going to protect me? I am protected because I'm choosing to do it God's way. And I'm not going to end up with a man that likes to wear jeans tighter than mine.
Yeah. So a few-fold question here. The first component, I believe, was what do I do if I marry a man and the sex is
horrible?
Okay.
Right.
Let's speak to that first.
Yeah.
Number one, this is this is in ministry and professionally. I've been counseling couples for about 15 years. And here is combined, and here is what I've discovered in my experience. Almost every couple that makes it into my office, not everyone, but almost everyone, the reason that they are in my office is because they do not understand what marriage is.
Okay.
You end up in a marriage for whatever reason you do, but by the time you make it to my office, my couch, you what is almost invariably the case, Lisa, is that people simply don't understand their commitment. They don't understand what they got into.
Okay.
So this is particularly related to the bad sex dynamic.
Right.
I would advise that you spend thorough time studying and understanding what marriage is and marrying for the right reasons.
Okay.
If your marriage, if you marry for alternative reasons other than this is a person that you can see yourself spending the rest of your life with, this is a person that you not just want to get something from, but most importantly, you want to pour into them.
Yeah.
Marriage is about giving.
Yes.
And helping shape the other person into what God has ultimately called them to be.
Absolutely.
If you come into marriage looking and expecting reception to a greater degree than you expect to give and pour out, then you are already what we call in Detroit, you're hustling backwards.
Okay.
You're hustling backwards. In other words, you're in bad shape. You got one foot in the grave already.
Right.
Because marriage is not about you. It's about the other person. And when you get two people that understand that my assignment is to give to the other person selflessly, and to trust that other person to give to me selflessly, then you have that cycle. You have that blood flowing in the arm, Lisa. You have that functionality. You have that power because every joint is supplying. You have circulation.
Right.
All right. Now, these have to be the fundamentals of marriage.
Yes.
Because if you don't see if you don't see your marriage as a journey together for better or worse, literally, not just what we say at the altar to get it over with and kiss the bride and have sex at the honeymoon. But if you don't see that as your actual task, your actual assignment,
yeah,
and what God is holding you accountable to do, to pour into that other person, then when you get into a marriage and the sex is bad, you are going to be in a nightmare because you prioritize sex over the journey.
Wow.
Sex becomes your idol.
Ow.
Sex becomes your idol.
So it's just idolatry. When it's all said and done, it ends up being about idolatry.
It ends up being idolatry. Here's what it is. It's, I want a divorce because I'm not happy. Lisa, what I found in my studies, in my time of prayer.
You got to preach, pastor, just so you know. You got to preach, pastor. Somebody put preach, pastor. And listen, I want you to know, just in case you have not figured it out, you got a whole, you got a whole amen corner. Someone just said, can I get that in 10 words or less? 10 words or less that I can say to the guys that I'm dating. Wow. That was.
You cannot idolize. They idolize, Lisa. Here's what they idolize. They idolize happiness. Marriage, people always talk about, specifically Christians, my marriage is a ministry. My marriage is a ministry. My marriage is a ministry. Love this idea of your marriage this being a ministry.
Yeah.
But the Apostle Paul said in 1 Corinthians 7, he says, if the one that wants to leave, if the unbelieving wife wants to leave the believing, faithful husband, she says, if he wants to leave, then let her go because God has called you to peace. But if she doesn't want to leave you, but she
she's broken, she's not a believer. He says, then if she be pleased to dwell with you, if she be pleased to stay with you, do not leave her. Why, believing husband? Because what do you know? You might save your wife.
Mm.
And then he inverts it. Believing wife, if the husband who's unbelieving, if he's broken, if he's derelict, if he be pleased to dwell with you, do not leave him. Why? Because what do you know? You might be able to save his soul.
Mm.
Marriage becomes less about happiness and more about ministry, not to other people, not your power couple Facebook picture,
Yeah.
but ministry within your marriage to the person you are married to.
Yeah.
Don't talk to me about your marriage being a ministry if you can't minister in your marriage.
Man, get us right, Reverend. Listen.
Don't talk about that. Don't tell me your marriage is a ministry and you want to do conferences and stuff, but you refuse to minister to the brokenness of the person that's in your marriage. Now, if you can do that, then guess what? You can have the patience that's required for the sex to graduate from trash to cash.
Right.
It's a journey.
Right.
If you do that, if you hang in there, over time, when you communicate, what I coach my couples to do, Lisa, is I tell them, this is one of the biggest egregious offenses and absent things in marriage, and that is couples do not communicate about sex. You have to communicate. This is what I coach my couples to do. You have to communicate 3 times around the idea of sex. You have to communicate before sex. Mm-hmm. What do you like? What don't you like? What is appropriate? When do you want this? When do you not want this? What makes you uncomfortable? What makes you this is before we even get our clothes off.
Right.
This is during the day where you're at work and I'm text messaging you saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this X, Y, and Z. How do you feel about that?
Right.
You're at work fully clothed and I'm communicating with you before sex.
Right.
I tell my couples to communicate during sex. Slow down. Make eye contact. And listen to the body language. Don't be so hasteful, man. Slow down in the pursuit of achieving the orgasm.
Right.
Slow down. And because if you don't slow down, it's gonna end faster than you wanted it to anyway. Brother,
it's gonna be a cameo appearance versus
it's gonna be exactly. Brothers, you better humble yourself. That thing ain't no joke. Slow down in there.
Yeah.
Okay, slow down. It'll rough you up. So slow down and talk and be in the moment. Communicate during sex. How does this feel? How do you like this? What do you want me to change? Become a student of the body of your partner. Learn it.
Right.
While you're in it. Be there. Be present. Hold hands and look at each other. Talk. Smell each other's breath while you're at it. Right in there. Get into it. Be intimate. And then communicate after sex. Reflect on it. What was that like for you? What worked? What didn't work?
Right.
Let's review. Let's evaluate.
Right.
And let's learn about each other. I didn't like that position. Why not? Well, because that one kind of hit my cervix a little bit. And that I didn't like that angle. Okay, no problem. Let's shift then. Okay. So when I'm there with you, what do I need to do? Do I need to move up? Do I need to move down? You need a pillow under you? Yeah, let's try the pillow. Okay.
So you're talking full-on conversation.
Dialogue.
You need to just talk.
Open it up. You're married. Be married.
Okay, so let me ask you this. How often, so you have these people in your office. How often do you see people that are just expecting that their mates will know what they should do by telepathy? Like,
oh my goodness.
Figure it out.
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you, you know where I see it in most?
Yeah.
I see it in women.
Said, I ain't doing all that dang talking. Figure it out.
See, and that's it. And without even seeing that, I guarantee you that's a woman.
Yeah.
I guarantee you. And let me
language. Read my body.
Yep. And here's the thing. And I'm gonna tell you this.
Yeah.
I gotta speak to that because that is one of the biggest. And I don't need to know who that is. Please don't tell me any names. I'm not
gonna tell you. Everybody's anonymous.
Yep. Good. I don't need to know, but I need to speak to that.
Yeah.
Because that right there is one of the biggest problems in the sexual experience for women.
Okay.
Women, that right there is classic pride in the bedroom.
Right.
And I gotta give it to her straight, because women love, not all women, but most women have a complaint. Many women have a complaint about men not being communicators. He doesn't communicate. He's a terrible communicator.
Mhm.
Well, Lisa, what I found out in my practice is that many women are not as good of communicators as they think they are.
Right.
Because a lot of women take that approach. I'm not going through all of that and telling you, figure it out.
Right.
But when you tell him to figure it out, here's what happens. Number one, you have an unrealistic expectation, because your body and the sexual climate is a whole language that needs to be learned. So what you're doing is you're telling him to learn your language without any education.
Right.
You're expecting him to speak Mandarin Chinese when he's from America and he's only fluent in English.
Right. Wow.
You got to give that brother some Rosetta Stone.
Okay.
You got to take him. So
unfair and unrealistic to expect that he will just know what you like, right?
Yep. And here's where that comes from a lot of the time.
Okay.
A lot of the time that comes from a grandfathered experience of a man that she had awesome euphoric sex with the first or second time. They had a chemistry that worked. And so now I've had chemistry with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I don't have.
She said facts.
I know she's saying facts, because it's the truth.
Yeah.
She has had a euphoric chemistry experience with another man.
Right.
And so because that chemistry happened to work, then she takes that expectation in covertly. It's a secret. She doesn't tell anybody.
Right.
She takes that secret into another experience with a man, and that chemistry is not the same. But that doesn't mean that sex can't be as rewarding or even more. It just means that she needs to have enough patience to communicate with him.
Yeah.
To help him understand her body. No two women's bodies are the same. No two men's bodies are the same. And I got to say this real quick while it's on my mind.
Yeah.
One of the other biggest misnomers and mistakes that women make in sex is believing that just because a man had an orgasm, or even an early orgasm, that means that man has had good sex.
Okay.
Do not, ladies, hear me clearly.
Explain that.
I need to talk to you. I need to explain that. Do not be prideful, and so presumptive, presumptuous to believe that just because your man had an orgasm or an early orgasm,
right,
that means that man has had an amazing experience. It doesn't mean that.
So basically, it just means that it's over.
It just means that it's over. Yeah,
okay.
It doesn't mean that, for sure.
Okay.
Guys, the way that the penis is designed and how it communicates with our reward system and our arousal template, you can blow on a guy and he'll have an orgasm.
She literally just said,
yeah,
the wind could blow.
The wind could blow on guys and you have an orgasm. And look at nature, Lisa.
Yeah.
No other mammal, no insect, no other organism has sex for 30, 40, 50, 3 hours.
Right.
Horses have sex, it's quick. Wham, bam, thank you, man. That man is on the ground, that male horse is on the ground shaking.
Right.
It doesn't last long. So now for humans, we have to, and you can't extend it, but you have to communicate to extend it, because it's against the nature to have these extended, sessions. So now it doesn't mean that you can't have more, that you shouldn't. But what I'm saying is, ladies, you have to regulate your expectation. You have to communicate, and you have to help the man understand your body. And again, you should not presume that because he's had an early or an early orgasm, that's been necessarily an effective one.
Right.
Orgasms, not every orgasm is the same.
Right.
Not every orgasm is the same. So that means that their men's bodies are just like women's bodies in that they're different and they're sophisticated.
Yep.
Men like foreplay too. Men like foreplay too. Men like to be talked to as well. Men like to be talked back to and whispered in their ear, and perhaps their nipples stimulated, or different alternative things. Men have erogenous zones all over their body. So it is the responsibility of the woman to take her time and to learn the man as well in the sexual dynamic, so that when there's an orgasm achieved, that it is memorable, not because they happen to hit the jackpot on an organically high chemistry union here, but there's a competency. Don't confuse chemistry with competency. They're very different. They're very different. Competency comes from learning and ascertaining and targeting based on what I understand. Chemistry is we flow and it ends up being great just because it just was.
Right. How important is attraction in the marriage and sexual relationship? So let me redirect.
Mm-hmm.
I know women who have said, I was not initially attracted to my mate, but as we got to know each other, I really got close to him, and now he's the best lover I've ever had. On the flip side, you see a woman that says, oh my gosh, I saw this man, he was amazing, he was gorgeous, and everything about him was right until we had sex, and everything about him was wrong. Mm-hmm. How important is the chemistry versus immediate physical attraction?
Well, chemistry has several levels to it.
Okay.
Just because we have social chemistry doesn't mean we have sexual chemistry.
Okay.
You can connect with somebody socially, and they can be a good conversationalist and talk a good game outside the bedroom, get in the bedroom, have riled you up, and completely disappoint you.
Okay.
If they don't know how to communicate in the bedroom.
Okay. So
the chemistry, there is a variable. So that's number one. Number two, to speak to the question about how important is attraction, attraction is extremely important. Mm-hmm. But we must understand that attraction is also a variable, because attraction not only applies to aesthetic appeal, but attraction also applies to mental stimulation.
Absolutely.
And emotional relatability.
Yep.
I know some people who are sexually anorexic. They are aversive to sex if they are not. You can be drop dead gorgeous. You could be an Adonis. And if you can't stimulate me mentally, then my vagina won't even secrete. I can't get up for the moment. Won't happen. But you are fine.
But
and nothing more.
But that's it.
And that's it. You look good, but you don't have any content to you.
Right.
Conversely, the opposite is true. I know people who they can simply look at you aesthetically and be attracted to you, and that's enough to get the juices flowing. That's enough for the male to achieve the erection, is you look good. So attraction is a variable. It is necessary, and for certain, it is a prerequisite for sexual connection. Mm-hmm. But the question becomes, what are you attracted to about the person? Because the attraction corresponds, whatever you're attracted to will correspond with your, what we call an arousal template. The arousal template is the arousal template is a list of things that get each of us aroused.
Right.
It could be a woman's breast. It could be a man's legs. It could be a man's deep voice. It could be a woman's walk, or it could be a man's intellect. It could be a woman's conversation. A woman doesn't even have to be the most aesthetically appealing, but if she has confidence and sex appeal, those are intangibles that now detonate an arousal in me that on print, on paper, you wasn't attractive. But when you opened your mouth and you start walking and you had swag, wait a minute, what's in there?
Right.
Now I'm attracted to you. Now I'm sexually attracted to you. And not because you are cover girl beautiful,
Right.
but because you have a security about you that transcends your exterior. How much sense does that make?
It makes a lot of sense. But
Okay.
can I jump in a different puddle?
Please do.
Tell me why. Okay, so I hear this all the time. Not only, when we talk about men, number one, that Charlemagne the God has, you know who Charlemagne the God is?
I do.
Okay. He has this thing called.
Can you hear me just as clearly, or will you hear me better when I have my headphones plugged in?
It's about the same.
About the same. Okay.
Yeah, it's about the same.
Okay.
He has this black men don't cheat thing going on, right? Obviously, women are in an uproar about it because they're like, yes, they do. You hear about infidelity all the time.
Right.
One thing that I hear when discussing infidelity is, I can't believe he cheated on me with that woman. She doesn't look anything near as good as me. Explain why it is not necessary for a woman to be as beautiful as you for a man to sleep with her.
Absolutely. Great question. The reason why a woman doesn't have to be as good or as good looking is because steak is my favorite dish. It's my favorite protein. I also like chicken. I also like lobster. I also like fish. And occasionally I enjoy tofu.
Right.
Okay. Just because steak is my favorite does not mean that I don't want an alternative at some point. Doesn't mean that I don't want to experience chicken.
Right.
Doesn't mean that. So now steak is the alpha dog. Let's be clear about that. But chicken provides an alternative when it's not that I don't like steak anymore. I'm just in the mood for chicken. So now this is not to exonerate and justify. This is to explain so that you'll.
Because I can hear the women now. Well, why can't he make this steak chicken instead of going out to get chicken? Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So ladies, hear me clearly.
Yeah.
What that is it's typically it's a result of that man having experienced chicken, steak, lobster. He's had these experiences that, again, we talked about earlier. He has not put to death. He has not grieved the loss of those former sexual experiences.
Yes.
So when you don't grieve the loss, when you don't bury that stuff, give it a proper burial, then what happens is your appetite flares up for certain things.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas when you're eating all of these proteins, what's healthiest is you need to go vegan.
Right.
And when you
meat for you, right?
Meat and that's the healthiest. So
right.
What's happening is women in relationship are expecting men to be vegan, and it's not a bad expectation. It is healthy.
Right.
It's just you need to be with somebody that when you finally decide to commit to them, you have reason to believe that they want to be vegan.
Yes.
You have reason to believe that they want to be vegan independently, that they value the vegan diet, and that they want to eat healthily.
Yeah.
And conversely, if you don't have that, then you're going to have a person that's a meat eater, and that's going to want all these different meats. And because you did not familiarize yourself with their appetite, then so you committed before you spent enough time learning the appetite of the man. Before you commit, find out what that brother likes to eat. Right. Get a dossier on his health condition. Right. Find out what's in his body. Are you following the analogy? Yeah. So spend time exploring what his appetites are and conversing with him about what he wants, what he's prepared for, what he desires. Does he still have that wondering eye? Yeah. Or does he have a desire to be vegan? Does he have a desire to be healthy? Does he have a desire to be gluten-free? And with that, when you screen for those things, it doesn't mean that he won't miss meat sometimes.
Right.
But you have a higher chance of him staying committed to the vegan diet because he knows it's healthy for him, and he's been on it he's been on this road a long time.
Okay.
Make sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so it's 10:30.
Yeah.
And are we good till 11?
I'm fine. Go ahead, Lisa.
Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to talk about infidelity a little bit because I do have a lot of marriages on this line.
Yeah.
And, I don't think it's, an absent idea for us to touch on infidelity, given the fact that it is impacting the church at equal, if not higher rates than it is the world, right? Which is an oxymoron. It should be lower, technically, but it's not, right? We know for a fact that we are experiencing infidelity within the church just as much as we are experiencing it outside of the church. A lot of times, especially with married women, I find that they are, I've seen it a couple of ways. Number one, let's address one thing. Men cheat on women.
Mm-hmm.
Women will take him back again and again until she thinks that thing is dead.
Right.
If a woman cheats on a man,
mm-hmm.
his ego is so damaged
mm-hmm.
that he don't know if he can make it. It doesn't matter if he's cheated on you 9 times. If you cheat on him once, he's got to review the entire relationship. He's not sure he can make it.
Mm-hmm.
Explain to me the difference, what it does to the woman for someone to cheat on her versus what it does to the man for someone to cheat on him.
Yeah.
Because we're not seeing an equal balance of grace here, right?
That's exactly right. Yep. And I first need to start off with acknowledging the fact that there's a double standard.
Okay.
There's a double standard. There's a double standard, and it's not fair. It's not fair. Just being egalitarian in our approach. When women have that grace capacity that men don't have,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one and done for a man in many cases, and for
mm-hmm.
women, it's there's a forgiving component. There's a forgiving and a healing, what I call an anointing,
Mm-hmm.
To be able to recover. And just, you guys have it, we don't for some reason, and I'll talk a little bit about why that reason is, in my opinion.
Okay.
But so with that, let's start by acknowledging that there's a double standard.
Okay.
All right, women, you need to hear me when I say that there is a double standard, and I'm not running from it.
All right. Touch your neighbor and say double standard.
Double standard, double standard, double standard.
Just in case you were missing church,
Yeah. All right. There's a double standard. And ladies, you need to understand that is the way that it is.
Yeah.
It's the way that it is.
Yeah.
The frustration comes for women in not understanding that. There is something culturally acceptable about a man yelling and screaming, being loud. And there's something culturally unacceptable about a woman doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Why aren't we equals? Aren't we? What is the deal with this? There's something culturally acceptable about a man opening his legs, sitting down and opening his legs. And there's something culturally taboo about a woman doing that.
Yep.
We're both people. What do you mean? We're both people. What? That's not fair. Double standard. Yep. Double standard. And it is the way that it is.
Yeah.
So now the question becomes, why is that the way that it is? Well, because Scripture talks about husbands treating their wives as the weaker vessel. The weaker vessel. It doesn't mean that she is weak in terms of inept.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that she's incapable.
Yeah.
It means that she is tender. She is fragile. She is delicate. She is to be treasured. She is to be revered. She is to be handled with both hands, because things that are handled with both hands are precious.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness. It's not a matter of weakness and strength. It is a matter of value. It's a value component. So because your value is different,
yep,
you can't open your legs and sit there. You can't, it's something, you can do it, but it's taboo. It cringes us.
yeah,
I can do what I want to do. You can, but there are consequences associated with that.
right.
So the taboo about that is there's a flower, there's a sanctity to the woman in society that that does not exist with the man.
Okay.
And women, you do not need to be affronted by that. You need to be encouraged in that.
Okay.
That distinction, there's a distinction in value there, because you are to be cherished. You are to be valued. You're precious. There's a reason why we can take pictures of your feet, Lisa, and put them on Facebook, because they got a contour. They're beautiful, they're polished. And
right.
while we got to cover mine up because it looks like I've been kicking bricks.
Right. The Wolfman feet. Right.
Exactly. I got something different going on. Now, there's a reason why when we look at the contour of a woman's shape and body, that we say, oh my God, that beauty is striking. It's paralyzing, it's gripping, it's debilitating in many cases, it's disarming. There's a reason why that has that effect, and that same effect is not had with the man. It's just like, oh, he's handsome, oh, I'm attracted. But the beauty of a woman and the beauty of a man are two different things.
Absolutely.
So what does that have to do with this cheating? Everything. Because when a woman, well, first let's deal with the woman's propensity to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
God has designed women emotionally, psychologically, and physiologically to be able to absorb and tolerate more pain than men ever could.
Wow.
You guys are able to carry a baby for 9 months. Your body can go through changes. Your body can expand. You can vomit. You can go through all of this and have the flu and still fried chicken,
make dinner,
quiche,
right?
Pamper and nurse the baby that you just dropped 10 months ago while you're cooking another one in the oven, clean the house. You can do all of that and function. And a man can have a common cold and ball up like a piece of foil.
I'm encouraged that you know that, though. I'm encouraged that you know that a cold is taking y'all out.
Every time.
Okay.
And a cold seems to encourage and inspire y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Y'all like a cold, oh, I can't do this, hold my beer. Let me watch me build this house. Wait a minute, sister, how you doing that? Here's why you're doing it. Because you're anointed to do it. The reason why women can forgive and we can't is because you're anointed to do it. Emotionally, physiologically, your body recovers. You got a snatchback gene in you that it's like you don't have no hips before you get pregnant. You drop the baby and whoa, where them hips come from?
Right.
You more beautiful. I thought you were supposed to lose ground. You became more dynamic.
Right.
Because of what you went through.
Right. Yeah.
You have that ability.
Okay.
Ladies, we don't have that. So this is why our tolerance is different when it comes to infidelity. Not only that, but psychologically. A woman is, when she gives her body to another man, she is entered. She receives. Men, we don't receive, we deliver. So that makes you the feminine recipient. That makes you the submissive party in the sexual dynamic. That's a psychological trauma that a man has a hard time getting through, that somebody else's car has been in my garage. Ooh, that's crazy. I can't get through. Somebody, because the woman's body accommodates. It accommodates the structure of a man. So now I have to get my mind around the idea of your vagina forming and contouring to the structure of another man's penis. Whoa, what you mean? That's crazy.
Yeah.
And women can forgive it we cannot. And I think it's because God has anointed us differently. So women, yes, double standard, unfair. And you need to understand that God has anointed you to do that. It doesn't mean it's cool. It doesn't mean it's okay. It doesn't mean that men get a pass. Hear me clearly. This does not justify cheating.
Yes.
But you better understand cheating if you're going to function in a relationship or recover from it ever.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I had another question. It says, what would you say for a woman who wants a man to love her more than she loves herself? Isn't that crazy?
Yes, it is.
That was pretty straightforward.
Yes, it is. Next question. No. Pretty much. No, it is crazy for a person.
Absolutely.
But here, I got to deal with this though, because this is twofold.
Because it happens a lot. It's a crazy question. You would think it's pretty straightforward and elementary, but it happens a lot.
Yep, it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that is, and to answer her question, a man expecting her to love him more than she loves herself. Number one, that is an insecure man. That's an insecure man. If a man expects you to love him more than you love yourself,
and vice versa,
that's an insecure person.
That's insecurity.
That's insecurity. Because a person who wants that is after reassurance and a false sense of security. They want to retain you and to captivate you, and they don't want you to appreciate value in yourself. A healthy man or woman will not demand that you love them more than you love yourself.
Right.
Because when you love me more than you love yourself, then then you have no independence.
Right.
You have no identity. Now, you said what?
I am your world now.
I am your world, and I am effectively your God.
Right.
Okay?
And I will fail you.
Exactly.
I know it.
And know it, right?
And so I know
now you got the Coming to America. Oh, what would you like, Prince Hakeem? Whatever that you like, whatever it is that, whatever that you like. Well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do, young lady? Where do you want to go? What would you like? I want whatever you like.
Right.
You have no thesis independently about your life.
Right.
And so that is unhealthy. And now, Lisa, this lends itself, I had this conversation the other day, this lends itself to the dynamic of women wanting to be the prize. The prize. Let me unpack that very quickly, and then we'll get the other questions. I had a conversation with a woman several days ago, and she was talking about how she sent me an Instagram post of a guy who had just graduated with his Juris Doctorate, and he said, it was a Black male, and he said, the caption said, "I'm the prize now, blank what you heard, I'm the prize now." And then at the bottom he says, "Hear me out before you bash me in the comment section." Okay. In the comment section, he went on to talk about, he began to litigate, to build a case for why he was the prize. And what he talked about, what he cited was, 35% of Black men are in jail. 40% of Black men are in jail, or whatever the statistic was. Him overcoming poverty and adversity and not being able to, have equal opportunities in school and scholarships and, coming out of the hood and, so he cited all of these burying dynamics. And he said he overcame all of those things and how women outnumber men. And so, he cited all these, he made a really good case. And the person asked me, what do you think about this? And I said, well, he's at least going to be a good lawyer. He'll be a good lawyer someday. Okay. Because he certainly made a good case for himself.
Right.
She was insulted by it. Lisa, she was incensed. She said, I'm incensed. I'm mad at the fact that he wants to say that he's the prize. We are the prize. Don't you know that we are the prize? And I said, well, what is the prize? What is that? And what is that based on? And she had a hard time answering it. Well, the prize is the one that is to be sought after, the one that is to be adored, and the one that's to be da 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 da. And she went on to talk about these pedestal-like elements that effectively made her an idol in the relationship.
Okay.
And here's what I found out: that a lot of women, see themselves as being the prize, which is an inherent power differential in the relationship. Now, when you marry me because I'm the prize and you're not, when things go wrong or when we have conflict, we remind you, sir, as women, I'm the prize. You hit the jackpot when you married me. I'm the one, you're the one who won because you got me. Let's be clear about
your side. Right.
Let's be clear about who's in power here.
Right.
Okay? It's me.
Right.
I'm the one that you won me. And the danger in that is it's selfish when marriage is all about being selfless.
Okay.
What would it be like for women to change their confession of I'm the prize to I want to serve you? And marrying somebody who says the same thing.
That's what I was going to say to you. Now, I will say this, and just being devil's advocate. I think the reason why we have a deviation in thought on that basis between men and women in general is because a lot of times women walk in, right, understanding that there's a level of servanthood, and hear me out when I say this, and a lot of times men don't walk in that way. And I think it is because from the beginning of time, we are taught to be nurturers. Our first gifts are dolls and kitchens, right? That's what we get. Guys get, fire trucks and sports cars, you know what I mean? And we're told by 25, you should be married and you should have kids by 30. And by 25, a man is taught to sow his wild oats. And so we've got these expectations that have been ingrained in us before we start. So I think a lot of times women walk in with, no, I'm not going to do that old model where my mom was a servant to my dad and my dad sat on the couch and didn't contribute. Now what I'm going to do is walk in the door knowing my worth. And I think they confuse the I know my worth with being the prize, because if you choose the right person, you won't wonder about your worth. You know what you're worth, and he sees it in you as well, which is why he selected you. So I think sometimes we get confused because we're afraid to be the one giving all the time because we've seen generations before us being the only one giving.
Absolutely, Lisa. And I don't see that as a devil's advocacy. I see that as completely complementary to what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have been socialized inappropriately. We have been mis-socialized. That creates these worldviews where we go into the relationship, men to their negative degree of expecting this woman servanthood dynamic without being prepared to be a servant himself first. It's husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself forward. If anybody understands anything about Christ, we understand very clearly that the Son of Man came to serve, not to be served.
Right.
So if you're going to love Christ if you're going to love your wife like Christ loved the church, you have to study how Christ served the church. You can't love your wife appropriately if you don't study Christ.
Yeah.
How you gonna love your wife appropriately if you don't know how Christ loved the church? He's a model. So the problem is we've got women marrying men who are not servants.
Right.
For security.
Right.
For their status. Right. So that they can post that Facebook picture and they can post married too.
Relationship goals. Right.
Relationship goals. Hashtag.
Right.
Relationship goals. And they idolize the wedding.
Come on.
Understanding the wedding is not the marriage.
No.
And so, because after you take all your pictures and your mascara wears off after your tears have been shed, then Now you got to go home after that honeymoon, and you got a whole guy to learn.
Right.
You got a whole man to learn. And if you haven't yoked up with a servant, then I'm afraid the ball and chain is not on him.
Right. Absolutely.
It's on you, sister.
Absolutely.
And conversely, brothers, do not stop marrying women who don't have a heart to serve, who thinks that service somehow diminishes her. If she thinks that service diminishes her and puts you under her feet, if she thinks submission is subservience and she sees submission as a weakness, brother, you got to run the other way.
Right.
Because she has no accurate understanding of the power of submission.
And it is power.
And it is the ultimate power.
Yeah.
It's the ultimate power. The Bible says Christ submitted himself unto death, even the death of the cross. It was submission that saved us.
Right. Yeah.
Submission that redeemed us. Sisters, don't underestimate the power of submission. If you have a problem with submission, it only means one thing. You have a pride problem and you do not understand submission.
Mm-hmm.
Submission is service. And when you serve, it is the soft answer that turns away wrath. You'll break a man down if you submit to him. You'll open his heart. If he's treating you bad and you come home and y'all had an argument and you come home and he comes home from work and y'all been at odds and he comes home and you surprise him with a bath in the middle of the crucible of a disagreement, he gonna be like,
what you do to my food?
What you doing? What's in that bathroom?
Right.
Yeah. What is it in there? What's in there?
Hey, what's in there? Right.
But you will disarm him. Peter says it this way, and then we'll shift. Well, we'll wrap up because we're 3 minutes before you got to go to bed, Lisa.
We got to do like a part 2 and 3.
Yeah,
this was hard. We got to talk about this. Yeah.
Yeah. But what Peter says is,
yeah,
wives, submit yourselves to your authority of your own husbands.
Yeah.
Therefore, for this reason, do so knowing this.
Yeah.
That if he doesn't hear the word of God, if that man is stubborn and prideful, if he doesn't hear the word, that you, without a word, without opening your mouth,
help us, Jesus,
can win him over while he observes your chaste living, your humble servitude, and that will appeal to his brain, and he will begin to make observations of your humility that is contrasted with his pride and overbearance. Sisters, stop talking to him and start submitting, because when you submit, you convert. Submission in the space of pride causes psychosis, because the man is like, what if this does not make sense? You'll break him down when you submit. When he observes that, you'll win him over. And I love what it says. It says you'll win him over. The problem, Lisa, is this. Women are trying to beat their husbands instead of winning them over. Stop trying to win against him, and sister, win him over. Scripture says, he who winneth a soul is wise. Win the soul, don't win the argument. You can win the argument and lose the soul. Don't attack his pride. Don't attack his pride with your pride. Don't fight fire with fire.
Yeah.
You fight fire with water. Put that fire out with some love. Run that bath water when y'all got into it. Serve. And of course, fellas, it's the same thing. This is not sexist, and this is not misogynist.
Right.
It is spiritual.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. So,
listen, I just want you to know that I truly appreciate the conversation. It has been a lot of meat. It has been a lot of meat. I will be digesting this for a few days. I will be running it back and playing it back and digesting it. But I wanted to take this moment to just thank you for the gift that you are. Thank you so much for being a steward over your time and planting seeds here. I understand the sacrifice that it is. And I believe that God is going to continue to increase you because of it. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And you guys, I will be posting this. I will be doing a Facebook Live. I will make sure that I announce the time. Dr. Cliff Clark, thank you so very much. Thank
Lisa,
you. Thank you.
Lisa, thanks for having me. You were a classic delight. I'm looking forward to the next experience with you. Thanks for having me on. If you're interested, you can follow me on Facebook at Clifford J. Clark.
Yep.
Also on Instagram at Clifford J. Clark as well. And then you can visit my website, transparent-counseling.com. Transparent-counseling.com if you're interested in any mental health or consultation services. Lisa, thanks again for this privilege.
Thank
And
you. We got to do a part 2. We're going to talk about it.
We certainly will if you'll have me.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. You guys, thank you guys so much. Have a wonderful evening. And remember, I believe in you. Now it is time for you to believe in yourself. I hope that you really enjoyed this video. This interview was amazing, and Dr. Cliff gave us so many good nuggets. Listen, there's a lot of good advice out there, but if you're not taking the time to apply any of it to your life, you're not going to benefit from it. So I hope that you found something in this video that you could apply to your life. And of course, if you need any kind of emotional support, I left Dr. Cliff's information in the video for you. Remember this, I believe in you. Now it's time for you to believe in yourself. Come back next week. We're talking all about dating foolishness. And you know there's foolishness. I can't wait to see you. 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. DM me for the Zoom code. Have a great one. Bye.